Although I couldn't get this working due to issues with the wireless communication and the lack of time, I got really close. This is what it would have looked like if I had finished. The process to create this was where I initially relearned Arduinos, then how to use servos, then joysticks, and I combined the two to allow me to create a joystick driving a servo. Later, I was able to make the joystick drive a motor and servo at the same time. Previously, I had issues with the motor being too sensitive and way too fast, so I wanted to tune it so I could have better control. However, after countless hours of seemingly random results, I figured out that ChatGPT had been lying to me and motors aren't coded from -180 to 180 pulse width modulation, they take 0 to 180, which means 90 is the center point, not 0. After getting the motor, servo, and joystick working together, I attempted to add in the wireless connection, which was much easier said than done. Initially, I couldn't find any examples of people using the same transmitter and receiver that I had, because apparently I bought a high-strength version with unique add-ons. Once I figured that out, I tried the examples online where I would transmit from one Arduino and read it in the serial monitor of the other. I had trouble with the wiring to my uniquely designed transmitter and receiver. Once I got it set up, I downloaded the code into one Arduino and realized I needed to connect to the other two simultaneously. So instead, I tried to use a battery to power the circuit.
A few moments later.
After testing for 2 more hours, I realized the battery was short-circuiting the Arduino, so the transmitter wasn't even on. I fixed that issue by using my USB adapter, which allows for multiple USB ports, so I could power and connect to both Arduinos simultaneously. Then I was getting something into the receiver, which was just a 32-byte long string of question mark symbols. So what do you do when nothing works? Move on to the second example, obviously. Let's just say that didn't work at all. I finally fixed that issue after figuring out that in the example video they made a mistake and said that the CHS port on the transmitter went into the port 10 on the Arduino, and in the code it was defined as being in port 8. At that point, I had unplugged the servo in all of my testing, and instead of getting the hello world I wanted, it just gave me a series of -12,080s. Furthermore, after rebuilding the circuit multiple times, begging ChatGPT, and rewatching the full video 4 times, I decided to plug the servo back in for no reason. And somehow, maybe it fixed the voltage or something, but hello world started outputting, the thing that I wanted. After a few minor issues with the wires unplugging and the transmitter stopping after 30 seconds without use, I figured out how to constantly get Hello World to appear. I then moved on to the second project, where I needed the joystick to transmit a signal to the servo. It literally didn't do anything this time, so I kept going back and forth between the first and the second project, trying to understand what was different. Especially with the weird shutting off of the transmitter, it was really hard to find how to solve the problem. I eventually found that the transmitter was working well and was connected to the joystick. However, the receiver was getting the -12,080 glitch, with some zeros too. At one point I managed to get the receiver to get the proper values from the joystick, but the servo I used was overheating, and by the time I shut it off and started up again, it broke. After 30 minutes of turning it off and on, I gave up and started changing things. After a lot more testing, changing different things with just the -12,080 and 0 results, I ran out of time. After getting the connection built, I would have just had to slap the receiver onto the car, and I would have achieved a remote control car with maybe a quick 3D printed controller housing to finish it off, looking something like this.